Kitchen talk, conversations that cook. Kitchen talk, conversations that cook. What you want to talk about? Kitchen talk, conversations that cook. Kitchen talk, Lisa, Lopre, JT, and friends. Kitchen talk, conversations that cook. Kitchen talk, conversations that cook. What you want to talk about? Kitchen talk, conversations that cook. Kitchen talk, Lisa, Lopre, JT, and friends.
Lisa, Lopre, JT, and friends. Y'all ready to cook up some conversation? Come on.
Kitchen talk.
Let's talk.
We is in the kitchen.
Back again.
Kitchen talk. CTC.
Conversations that cook.
Oh yeah, I love
This is
it.
gonna be a good one today.
Yeah, I think it's gonna sizzle a little bit today. So hey, listen, before we get there, so that I won't get to the end and forget, we are in the middle of our summer subscriber campaign. Hey there, Mr. Richardson. It is in full swing. It is our summer subscriber campaign. Listen, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell your mama, tell your daddy, everybody. Hey, this is our goal. Our goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers. So actually, France got like over 1 million friends anyway. So if just half of his friends would subscribe, I think we'll be all right.
They just need to push the button, Lisa.
We need to push the subscriber button. Push
That's
that subscriber button if you on YouTube. Hey there, Mr. Bruce. So listen, there are prizes. Initially, we were going to pull those today, but I was thinking, since this is the wonderful month of August, that we would do it my birthday week. So on the 26th,
I knew that was coming.
I didn't wear my earrings. I wore regular earrings today, but y'all know I'll pull out some August stuff during the month of August. Because I mean, let's face it, it's just like the best month of the year. I mean,
hey, do it.
It is. So we're gonna pull those winners. There's gift cards. There is tax prep prize. There is you can win a spot on Kitchen Talk with us. You come in the broadcast room and chat it up with us. So we're going to do that on August the 26th, which is actually 3 days before my birthday, but I celebrate all month. So, hey, it is what it is. That's what we're going to do. So now we have with us for the first time, and hopefully not the last, Dr. Kyle Harris. I'm super excited to have him in the kitchen with us from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. That's right.
No, hey, let them know, Doc. Let them know.
That's right. He is a history professor there. And I'm telling you, I have not sat in Dr. Harris' class, but if you walk by, oh my God, it's like you want to go in the door. I'm like, dog, I gotta work, but I want to go in the door and sit in this class. It's so exciting. Just to hear him and how he interacts with the students. And then they come out and be like, oh my God, this is the best class I ever had. I have heard that, Kyle. I'm trying to tell you, I have heard that.
Okay.
So we are so excited to have you here with us. And our hot topic for today is critical race theory. Now, I have to admit that it's only been recently, since this big buzz, that I really heard about critical race theory. And I did a little research, a little digging. And this theory has really kind of been around since like the 70s.
Yep.
70s, 80s. It's even transformed a little bit into some other stuff. But I found it very interesting. So I was like, you know what? Let's just talk about it. Let's just talk
Okay.
about it. Let's just talk about it. I mean, that's what we do in the kitchen. We just talk about stuff, And I thought this was a really good one. What really made me want to talk about it, and I'm sure we'll touch on this, was the fact that I think, if I'm not mistaken, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, we need a fact checker. I need to hire some interns that can do our fact checks. I'm thinking that Governor DeSantis has banned the teaching.
That is correct. I can check. We don't need a fact checker for that. That is correct.
Okay, so I did hear that one right then. Okay. So Dr. Harris, can you give us a little background on it?
If looking at that of critical race theory, it is the argument that racism has shaped American public policy, arguing that racism or race is a social construct put in place by individuals that has expanded into what we know to be legal systems today that adversely affect people of communities of color and so forth, class as well as gender. As you said before, it's been around since the 70s, going back to that of Attorney Derek Bell. Kimberly Crenshaw is still around, and of course, she added a feature to that of critical race theory in which she talks about Black intersectionality being that of Black as well as being that of a woman, looking at those dynamics there of being that of Black and being that of queer, looking at those dynamics there and the things in which individuals face here in this country. And of course, with that of Richard Delgado, of course, he's a professor at the University of Alabama. So, of course, this has been around for the past 40-something years, but why did it become such a hot topic, here over the last year? All right, for the past 8 years or so, we had just an overt racist in office under the auspices of the Trump administration and Make America Great Again. All right, of course, he ran on that slogan, and ultimately, there's nothing about this country in the past that was great. Of course, we're moving towards unity and equity and inclusive spaces and so forth and so on. But yesterday, the day before yesterday, last year, 200 years ago, of course, the freedoms that we have today, in a lot of cases, they were not around. And of course, he ran on this slogan. Of course, his base is that non-college educated, white base, wherein these individuals feel as if they have taken a back seat to that of white liberals and Black intellectuals in this country, most particularly as it relates to the two-term presidency of Barack and Michelle Obama, and seeing Black people in that of proud and safe spaces. It created some sort of what I call a white backlash against their perceived notions that Black people had arrived, I'd say. And what we see there after the March on the Capitol, which was, I call it white privilege on display, there on January 6th, what we find during the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 days of Donald Trump's notorious presidency, he appoints that 1776 commission, and they come up with that 1776 project wherein they're going to argue that the history of this country should be taught in a way that supports the country, that supports patriotism, and it should not be criticized. Most particularly, this piece came about because ultimately what we find is that 1619 project, which was ultimately put in place by that of Professor Hannah Jones, and it answered that. ultimately, Hannah Jones was telling us that this country was, of course, established on racism, with that of violence as well as exclusion. And the 1776 Project is arguing for patriotism and exceptionalism, which goes against, in essence, equality, equity, inclusion, and so forth, in this country. But the march on the Capitol happened. Of course, Donald Trump lost. As we go outside of Tallahassee today and we go down to St. George's Island, we see that these people are still holding true, all right, to Trump Pence. All right, the signs, boys, are being boarded up. They're falling over, but they have 2x4s on them, holding up, sending this message that ultimately we believe that the election was stolen. Racist people will rise again, and that's what ultimately we stand for. And of course, we see here with Governor DeSantis urging the State Board of Education to outlaw critical race theory during, I think it was early June or somewhere along those lines, so that it would not be taught in school. Essentially, what we find in our K through 12 educational systems as it relates to American history, it is taught through the lenses overwhelmingly of white men. What we find in this country, the founding fathers set up this country. It was set up by white men for white men. All right. What we find there is Jeff Davis, the president of the Confederacy, boys, is going to double down on that fact before the Confederacy even formed. He was like, y'all arguing slavery in the congressional chambers. Why are we even having an argument about this when Black people were not even a part of the equation? So Abraham Lincoln, of course, the great father of Black freedom and so forth and so on, he doubled down on it in his presidential debates to say that, hey, this country was set aside for that of white people. And Abraham Lincoln even went further to say that there will always be, in essence, a distinction between that of the white and Black races, wherein the white race would always be superior to that of the Black race. So what we find, even with that of this abolitionist sentiment and so forth and so on, these white abolitionists, they did not believe in the complete liberation of Black folk. Now, they wanted Black people to be free according to what they defined as freedom, and essentially Black people being free under that of white eyes and white standards and white culture, but Black people could not be apologetically themselves. And that's what we find even with the one of the most famous abolitionists, which was William Lloyd Garrison. He pulled out of the Abolitionist Society because his argument was, we shouldn't give Black people the right to vote. You all are moving entirely too fast. So therefore, I resign because it is not time. Black people have not fully embraced this white standard. All right. So one of many things there, Miss Lisa, but looking at the governor, and that's all I'm gonna say. And I'm talking as Kyle Harris, and not talking as an agent of FAMU. All right, looking at
absolutely.
Looking at this governor, of course, he's gonna argue that when we talk about racism, genocide, violence, discrimination in this country as it relates to the teaching of history, we're distorting historical events. But what we must realize, when the American school curriculum was put in place at Harvard University way back in the 1600s, they set it on a white Greek standard that could not and would not be questioned. All right, that was in the 1600s. Okay, 2021, we're having Governor DeSantis to say that whatever has been taught in American history shall not be questioned, because when you question it, you distort it. So that age-old white male racist ideology has moved through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 generations to 2021. And in essence, what they're doing is, I saw it I looked at it in this book by that of Ibram Kendi. It's called Stamped from the Beginning, The History of Racist Ideas in This Country. And I used it in my classes. And ultimately, when we're going to see that Barbara Smith is going to say this about white-centered education of Holyoke College, when the focus in the classroom is almost exclusively white and almost never Black, dissatisfaction among those students with historical and cultural roots which are not white and European is ultimately inevitable. And what I'm saying there, Miss Lisa, is this. All right. When literature is white, when science is white, when social studies is white, when philosophy is white, what am I going to do in class, France? I am going to talk. I'm going to pass notes. I'm going to pull out my phone, all of these things. And what I'm saying here is that this entire system is used, this white-centered system is used to move children from schools to ISS, to OSS, to alternative school, and ultimately to prison, because there's nothing about the curriculum that interests us. Every page is about a white person. So of course, white people are going to listen and participate and so forth and so on. But if everything is not about us, if we're not a part of America in the classrooms, how do they expect us to excel? And
here's the problem, though, Mr. Harrison. You man,
you just
unloaded the fire.
But it's just,
listen, we are our show. You already got the whole fire going. But you know, one of the things that's happening is that people are confusing critical race theory with racism and race education in America, right? And I think that's probably one of the biggest things, because think about it. No school in Florida, let's say K through 12, is teaching critical race theory. It's a college-based setup. It's a construct that was developed to essentially help people in the policy making, in the development of how we actually govern our country. It wasn't set up in terms of this is what we're going to teach in the classroom. If you bring it in the classroom, then you are going to expose stuff that should have been exposed anyway. As you stated before, Black history is American history. I've shared that on the show numerous of times. And until we get to that point of understanding that as Americans, we need to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that's the real piece right here. Let's just show the sunshine, right? Let's just show the, hey, happy hour, period. Let's not show what we did wrong. And, I gotta bring it back, because there are a lot of educators, both white and Black, who are on board to not just the idea of teaching critical race theory, but the idea of teaching racism in America. Racism, not only racism, but also the real history of slavery in America, Jim Crow in America, violence in America. If we hide that, then we are essentially opening our doors to having it repeated again in our future history.
It hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't been eradicated. So it's not necessarily a repeat.
I said that on the show before. I said on the show before that that time in history was during the Civil War. You remember that, Lisa? They needed to kill that beast in the Civil War, but they didn't allow that beast to die in the Civil War. They allowed them to strive. And these are the same people that are running the country, same people who got voted in this, not this last election, but the election before last. I can't even say his name anymore. 45.
Some of them got voted in this last election too. All right.
Yeah, I agree.
Some of his disciples.
And then these are the same people that take on that same mindset that we are not Americans, that America belongs to them, but not us. And that kills us as a people and us as a society. And I'm not just talking about Black people. I'm talking about America as a whole. we are behind in so many areas. But again, we only want to see the sunshine instead of addressing the issues. So I'm done. You just
Okay, I
the
get friends, but what I'm saying, and of course, we say that, of course, this is not about teaching racism. The books that have been written by white racists who have, in essence, created and perpetuated racism over the generations. The absence of Black people in the books perpetuates racism. So the thing about it is, it's already there. Oh my God.
And that's the problem. I don't know, because the fight has been to not teach critical race theory. But they're not.
The fight is what they don't want is for us to teach anti-racism.
Correct.
Because racism is the absence of Black voices, the absence of brown voices in the text, the absence of indigenous voices in those textbooks from the very beginning. So therefore, you can't argue that we can't teach racism. We're teaching anti-racism. So we're trying to fix what you all put in place. So therefore, when I talk about ultimately Nat Turner, when I talk about Harriet Tubman, when I talk about Martin Delaney, when I plug all of those Black people back in the American narrative, that's when it becomes inclusive. That's when it becomes equitable. That's when it becomes American. But until that point, it is ultimately racist, because what we in a lot of cases equate Americanists are being America with whiteness. All right. And ultimately what we find is a simulation breeds racism. It is just ultimately a offshoot of racism, wherein there's nothing about Black people, there's nothing about Latino people, there's nothing about indigenous peoples, Native Americans, that is in essence American.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? It is not the standard. And what we find in this country is that has always been the case. And what we're doing is, what we're saying is, critical race theorists are saying that I love my country, as James Baldwin said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I love my country enough to be critical of what it is doing. And if I was not, if I didn't love my country, all right, I would not care ultimately what they're doing. But the argument of not teaching racism, ultimately, what we're doing is we're fixing what racist people have done. What racist people are continuing to do through that of the governor and his adherents. All right, I call them disciples of DeSantis. All right, and so forth and so on. And the thing about it is, what we find, and I think you all saw that the census information came down, the 2020 census results came down today. And what we find, so the white population has decreased in this country, Miss Lisa, by 8.6%. And what they're is, and of course, you know, they're still in the majority, but it's decreasing steadily. And what we see here, scholars are projecting that by 2030, they will no longer be in the majority. So all of this CRT backlash, it is to preserve their legacy, because they know that this country is every year is becoming more and more brown. And there's going to come a point in time where they're not going to be in the majority. So they have to keep these laws and policies in place in order to maintain their superiority. And that white supremacist model was in no way moral, in no way was it equitable, in no way was it supposedly American. Unless we say that America is racist. All right, if we want to look at the Declaration of Independence, all right, and Thomas Jefferson authoring it, and he was problematic with it himself. You know, he was a sexual predator, child molester, and so forth and so on. But you know, he's regarded as this founding father. But just looking at the number of times different drafts of the Declaration of Independence were written in a way in which it erased the existence of Black people, because the topic of slavery came up. But slavery, Miss Lisa, friends, it was so heavily monetized. They knew that this country would not continue without Black labor. So therefore, take the whole topic out. Because what was going to happen with those, as the people say in the church, Miss Lisa, those delegates, not delegates, those delegates, they were going to go back to their states, their colonies, and there was going to be 13 original countries versus the United States. if they did not take that clause out. And ultimately, we're going to see that Thomas Jefferson and others took that clause out. So everybody was guilty. All right. As they say in the church, you sin by commission and omission. Some of them sin by commission, Miss Lisa. And the other ones sin by omission because they said it was fine.
Right.
All right. And so forth and so on. So essentially,
they omitted
the seed
to do the right
of racism. Exactly. And white supremacy was in essence planted from the beginning.
Yeah.
White male. It was white male. It wasn't even the women included. It was
exactly. We hold these truths self-evident that all men are created equal. Problematic, Miss Lisa.
Within itself.
All right. So, and it's just like, people, it's been argued by that chauvinists, it's been argued by that of individuals that support patriarchy, that men is inclusive of women. No, it's not.
It was not in that. It was not.
All right. And the thing about it is, we have to, again, watch our word choice, even in this day and time. And it's a process for everybody.
It is.
All right. So it's like racism is so pervasive until it is normalized.
Correct. And that's exactly what happened. It was normalized when they came here. It was normalized through Jim Crow. It was normalized. So you have people who just sat back, who knew it was wrong, but just said nothing about it. More importantly, I think, again, America is just like anything. It's growth. And we have gone through the good, the bad, and the ugly. We just need to remember that. And that's part of what this argument is about. Taking away the liberties that an educator should have to share what the truth is. And that's the other fight. Let's share the truth, not the half truth, not some of the truth. Let's share all of the truth. And then let's start to build upon that. And I think that's you said it right. The language was built on all men, right? But
white men, white straight men, white straight rich men. All right, let's get all of those in there. White straight rich men. Okay.
And you're right. You have to include that because it wasn't for the regular white man. It was the white, rich, and wealthy man. But the verbiage, the language, if used in the correct mindset, means that we all have the ability. We all should pursue happiness. We all, whether you male, female, black, white, Spanish, Indian, all of us have that. And that's what America is. I think in their thought process of making it just a all white fraternity.
The forefathers thought process. The forefathers thought process did not have nobody else in mind.
No, but you're right. They didn't. But in writing that piece, I don't think they knew what they were actually writing. They knew that it was for them.
It was black folks in the room, friends. It was black folks in the room. Ultimately pouring tea, fanning Mr. Jefferson, wiping his face.
And
so they knew exactly what they were doing. It was not like they were in Independence Hall alone.
No. I'm saying that, let's get this clear too. There was also black rich men there too. A lot of times we take that out of the equation. There are black rich men who were in that room. What I'm saying is that when they wrote that, I don't think they knew the validity, how far reaching it would go and how impactful it would be, not just for the people that they wrote it for. Okay. And that's the piece that I think we have to continue to fight for in terms of America. It's
how we now interpret it.
Correct.
It's kind of like reading the Bible. It's how we interpret it now.
To interpretation.
But that was not the intent.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, because the Bible can enslave. All right, but I'm gonna leave that alone. So
that's a whole nother talk. Listen, I had that talk with Lisa, and we spent like 3 hours on just that one talk. So listen.
So what I say is this, friends. Now, of course, that argument of black folks being in the room, these rich black folks in the room. Now, all right, I got to go back and do my research on that. If they were in the room, they didn't identify as black. All right, and the second of all, you said something, and I like it, but we have gone through the good and the bad and the ugly in this country. I contend that we're going through the good. We have not arrived, and we are in no way close to arriving at a space that we call a democracy, a space that is safe, a space that is inclusive. So in no way, and I think about, you know, the establishment of Juneteenth as a federal holiday. All right. And in a lot of cases, what we find with oppressed people, we clap too fast. All right. And ultimately, we celebrate the day. We celebrate the day. All right. But ultimately, we know that the struggle of Black and brown people in this country, it continues because what I teach my students in class and what I know to be true, slavery in this country did not end. It just evolved. All right. And it's still in existence even to this day. So I have to, you know, remain vigilant. And I tell everybody that I see, we have to remain vigilant. All right. In this fight. Not for freedom, I would say, but for liberation. All right. So that heart, mind, soul, community, all about liberation. All right. So I'd say that it continues, but once that was a narrative of the civil rights movement. Of ultimately we were overcoming. All right. And we find it again during the election of Barack Obama, with this being a post-racial society. What we find is that is not the case.
Nope.
All right. That is not the All right, I'm gonna leave it alone. That is not the case.
That is not the case.
In order for Barack Obama to ultimately become president, he had to distance himself from Jeremiah Wright, which was a critical race theorist. Oh my God. All right. So it's just like, in order for you to be the president, you have to embrace this racist ideology that if Jeremiah Wright says, God damn America, he can't be your pastor anymore and you can't be president. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like.
How about this, Mr. Harris? You not only distance yourself from Jeremiah Wright, but you also distance yourself from Black people, period.
In some ways,
Let me tell you, he was already in a mindset of, I am the president for all people.
And he is.
And he was. Shirley Chisholm was also, I just left DC and I got a chance to go to the African American Museum. If you have not been, it's a must go, period. Anyways, Shirley Chisholm was saying the same thing, and I was listening to her video. I'm like, wow, this is very similar to what Barack Obama was stating. Yes, he is a president for all people, but guess what? All Americans don't believe that you're American.
True. So think about it.
Problem. He had the opportunity to kind of change that, but still, America racist is too deep. It is so.
But the thing about it now, I don't want you to get it misconstrued. Now, I appreciate everything that Barack and Michelle did to move the race forward. Could they have done more? Yes. I believe, but you have to be in that space. All right. And the thing about it is all about negotiation and playing politics, and you win some and you lose some, and so forth and so on. And my thing is, of course, they won some and they lost some. So now it is on the next administration to win more and win more. Each generation wins. We all stand on the shoulders of each other, and that's the way we continue to move it forward. So I won't, in essence, I'm not
diluting.
I'd say. Discredit Barack Obama and his administration, but I just use that as one example of how we have to, what do they call it? How we have to be politically correct. All right, in a lot of cases, in order to be the president of the United States. All right, and so forth and so on. And just going back, country made for white men by white men. 44 of the 45 presidents, 45 of the 46 presidents are and were white men. Right. So 45 of the 46 vice presidents, Miss Lisa, were white men. All right, and so forth and so on. So it's just, so, and I'm saying all that to say that, again, the struggle continues. The fight continues.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I see is change most of the time comes when you are uncomfortable. And we spend so much time making sure that America or white America is comfortable with us trying to progress or this change or whatever, that we not gonna see that it ain't no smooth process. We got to go.
It's not.
You have to go at it. And you
do,
cannot
and
do that in a sweet, kind, no, come on. You can't do that because everybody feels like it's the. So if we don't throw away the history book and rewrite a history book, you can't do it piece by piece. You got to just do it, rip the Band-Aid off, and let's move on. Let's move
and that's
forward.
Why I
say, to me, that's what critical race theory is. We're not discounting this, that, and the other, but what we're saying is, what I feel like it's saying is, you got to add in what the contribution of non-white people was to this country, number one.
Women.
And women, right, gender and all of that, number one. Number two, you have to take into account that if you look at it from a sociology standpoint and how policies are being made, race is a factor.
Yeah,
and
you can't
get away
there's
from
no
that.
way that you can discount
this
it.
Whole system. All of this by I'm colorblind, I don't see color, that is a lie. If you don't see my color,
and the thing about it, Miss Lisa, that's racist within itself.
I need you to see me as a black woman.
All of me, okay?
with my twist and everything. I need you to see me. Don't be talking about color. Nah, y'all done got me all hot and bothered.
Well, listen,
don't be talking about
color.
That don't make sense to me. That does not make sense. I don't see color. What do you mean? I am a black woman.
Yes, but the thought process behind that came about during that of the Newt Gingrich administration, and where they were trying to move away from the issues concerning Black people and so forth and so on. That was a Republican ploy, where this was a new colorblind society where justice was colorblind and so forth and so on. But you cannot ignore the racist history of this country. You cannot ignore the current statistics in this country, where 1 in 3 Black men will go to jail in this generation. You get what I'm saying? So you cannot ignore ultimately those pieces. And to argue, in essence, and another argument that individuals that are against critical race theory say is that white children will feel uncomfortable in the classroom. No, white children will not feel uncomfortable in the classroom. They won't. Who will they be upset with? They will be upset with their parents and their grandparents and their great-great-grandparents. Because as I teach in my classes, Miss Lisa, I have 1 or 2 white folk in my classes. All right. So first, I start off with Africa. Let me set the tone now. Everybody in here is Black. That's where we originated from. So everybody, I don't care how light you are. All right, you're Black, because that's the original ancestor. All right, we're gonna set the tone day one. All right, and ultimately where I'm going with that, I lost my train of thought. But ultimately, what I'm saying here is that you can't discount that in this country. You can't. And when you go back and you just think about of course, we got a Black sailor ultimately on the Santa Maria. All right. And ultimately, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. But ultimately, what we find on that, the captain of the Santa Maria there, ultimately what we see here is that Pedro Alonso Nino El Negro was the captain of ultimately the Santa Maria. But is that taught in our classrooms?
Here's
so it's just like, so again, that's what DeSantis and those don't want us to distort.
Correct.
All right.
But here's a deeper context.
When little white kids hear that and they're like, so it was a Black guy there all along, and ultimately, why was he not mentioned? That's when those questions go home to their parents and so forth and so on. So ultimately, those white children that are in my classes, that are in the K through 12 educational system, if they know the true history of this country, they will work to make it more inclusive. As I tell my kids, it's coming back to me now, friends. No living white person today is responsible for slavery. But every living white person today benefits from that institution.
You're right.
No living black person, and every living black person wears the scar of discrimination in this country due to that of slavery in this country. And ultimately, what I'm saying there is, it's not about them feeling uncomfortable. All right, I do it every semester. Usually 2 or 3 of them in my classes, Miss Lisa. The first day is just like, oh, all right. And then when I bring it full circle, it's like, Mr. Kyle, they should be teaching more of this, because white people are just dismantling racist systems that their forefathers put in place. Well, that's their job.
Again, when you change history, when you change how things are seen, you go to Egypt and you take their concepts, you go to, all these other places, and you take their thoughts and you make it your own. Essentially, I needed to go back because that's a whole nother kitchen talk right there.
Yeah, so it's just like, there's an African proverb that I share on the first day: until lions have their own historians, tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So therefore, I make sure that we have our own, Lisa, historians. I'm just going to leave that where it is. All right, so I always consult the author before I teach it. And if that author is problematic, I don't care who approved it. I won't be teaching out of it. All right, so
that's the biggest piece. That's what we're fighting.
You have to examine the author.
And that's what we're fighting. It's really the truth. It's really what has actually happened. And again, it's the critical race theory is a different concept of that. Yes, it's connected. But here's a group of people who decided that, hey, let's add that and talk about how that affects Black, brown, and other people in terms of racism in our country. That's what it's about.
Okay.
The problem that's happening is that people have mixed the two, which there is a correlation. But to wipe everything out is the problem that we're facing today. If they can do it with critical race theory, they can do it with everything else.
I don't know if it's a wipeout more so as it is, like you're saying, tell the truth, but tell the whole truth. So yes, there was a Christopher Columbus, but there was somebody before him.
Yeah.
And then talk about how
I wanted to say that. There was somebody before.
So it's just like Ivan Van Sertima's, they came before Columbus. Right. I teach it in my world history classes. Miss Lisa, when Dr. Paul took that class from me this fall, I was hurt. All right, because I was ready. All right. And he said, Kyle, don't worry about it. You can just take another class. And I was fine with it, but I was ready to go in there with they came before Columbus. But I'm teaching some other stuff. But and I'm saying all that to say, even going back, friends, to Egypt. Herodotus, all right, the father of history, Count Constantine, and all of those individuals, they shared, Miss Lisa, with Europeans that the arts, the sciences, all of those pieces were Negroid. All right, not these people that are tan, but the arts, the sciences, philosophy, and religion, those studies originated in southern Egypt and northern Sudan, which we call Kemet. All of that, what we know about religion, all of those pieces, all right, originated in a Black safe space. But what you find is George G.M. James writes a book called Stolen Legacy, Miss Lisa. They, as I tell my students and all, they wrote it up as if they had done it, all right, and didn't footnote. And I tell my students all the time, so if you don't footnote in the material, what happens? You get a 0. So when it comes to these Greek philosophers, they get 0s in my book. So therefore, I'm not going to teach about a failed scholar, all right, that failed to properly footnote. All right. And in essence, all of those pieces, moving all the way down to the establishment of Harvard, the establishment of Yale, these white-centered curriculums and so forth and so on. What we find with all of that, friends, is that entire message was to control Black bodies to build white wealth. All right, from 1619 all the way down to 2021. The reason why DeSantis and those do not want critical race theory taught, or just not, and I won't even say that. They don't want Black history taught and the studies of women, the studies of indigenous people.
They don't want Black history taught. It's not just critical race theory, which is a whole different theory. We don't want Black history taught. We don't want we don't want anything about civil rights and human rights taught.
And women and LGBT society and so forth and so on. So I get it. But the thing about it is, and if you don't teach it, and those individuals go to, I'm going to say it, and I'm speaking as Kyle Harris and not Florida A&M University. If they go in a lot of cases, Miss Lisa, to predominantly white institutions, they won't get it because that space is controlled. That narrative is controlled by white infrastructure. So studies about Black people, communities of color, you can go through those institutions and never touch it. So therefore, those individuals obtain full degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctorate degrees. Then they go out into society, and when they see institutional and systemic racism happening, they are aloof because they don't know. And because they don't know, those white racist people win. And going back to originally what I said, controlling Black bodies to build white wealth. When we think that the prison population and prisons and all of those things should be set aside for Black people, and we don't find that to be problematic, how white people are benefiting from that every day, all right, that's because those individuals have not been taught institutionalized and systemic racism. And the thing about it, and Prince, you keep saying that critical race theory and Black history is two different things. I think they come together perfectly.
I do too.
All right, because you can't teach one without the other. All right, and I use in my African American experiences classes, Miss Lisa, I use Angela Davis's book, Are Prisons Obsolete, for us to look around us as it relates to how Black men and Black women are being enslaved in America's prisons, all right, and how we house more prisoners in this country than any other country on this globe.
Wow.
So, and you know, and the wealth that is being amassed through the control of Black bodies, controlling Black bodies during the institution of slavery, controlling Black bodies while our folks, my mama, Miss Lisa, was born on a white man's property, and my grandparents were sharecroppers. We find my parents' generation being controlled by a white infrastructure and moving all the way down to us. Right. In a lot of cases, Miss Lisa, and I just thank God, and I thank God for the ancestors that we're able to work at a Black institution. That is not the story of the majority of persons of African descent in this country, where we can operate unapologetically as who we are and be able to center our agenda before the State House, before the White House, and so forth and so on, and be heard. Now, it may sometimes turn a blind eye to us, but we have that unapologetic space. And what I look to do, as Bernard Kinsey said, which is an alumnus of Florida A&M University, I look to leave the door open, Miss Lisa, and I'm sweating, and the ladder down for other Black people unapologetically. When you know, as in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, what they have done to us in this country, you can't leave that door open and that ladder down for another Black brother and a Black sister. All right, you can't. There's no way that you can. And you hear these people argue reverse racism, sweetie. You can go on with that. You can have many seats. When we look at the racist history of this country, how y'all put it together, Richard Hatley wrote letters to London telling them, white poor people, you can come to America and be rich. And it was a get rich quick scheme. You come as an indentured servant. You work for 7 years. You get 100 acres of land. You can mortgage that land, Miss Lisa, and get you 10 slaves. And those 10 slaves don't procreate. You can have sex with them and get more money. So it was a win-win. All of those things were legal for white folk.
It was. And that's the crazy part about that. But the other thing is that it's still about the money. Whether you are white, Black, Indian, Spanish, Listen, dollars was pushing it. If you didn't have
so
it,
it was heavily monetized, and oppression and
Yes.
oppressive systems in this country are heavily monetized. And I'm glad that you brought it up, friend, because racist people are not necessarily just all white folk. All right, a black person can perpetuate racism by advocating against that of critical race theory, advocating against that of Black history. Ultimately, and white people can do the same. So ultimately, as we all know in the Black community, all skin folk, Miss Lisa, ain't kinfolk.
Well, you said it too. Omission is still a sin, right? Just because you don't say nothing, you don't do nothing, or you actually fight for the other side, you are actually helping push the narrative that we're trying to stop.
Bro, you're supporting the status quo. So what I do in my classes, Miss Lisa, and I'm pretty sure you do the same thing in France, is assist the students in putting together arguments that are rooted in the history of this country and so forth, to begin to expand the spaces of democracy and expand the gates of democracy in this country. So I put together debates and so forth and so on, and sometimes you may have to argue against what you stand for. And the reason why I asked them to do that, Miss Lisa, is that you need to know what ammunition the opposition is using against us. So therefore, you're going to argue for the Confederacy today. I want you to be well versed in what these people said about us. All right, Miss Kyle, I don't want to do that. You're going to do it today. All right. So
I love that you're doing that in your class, because that's what the argument is about, right? I want to know what both sides of the fight we're fighting for, right? I don't just want to know the people who were enslaved. I also want to know the people who fought, as you stated, Nat Turner, Toussaint Louverture, Baptiste. I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that I can now move forward. And that's what we want to do with America. So I love teaching at all levels, right? With all different types of students, because that's what we need to be, pushing forward a better America. And to do that, we got to reckon with the past so that we can move forward into the future. There's no other way. If we keep running,
it's getting hot in here. It's hot. I'm not sitting in my kitchen, but I'm sitting in my dining room. I'm sweating. You said it was going to get hot.
I told you it's going to be a hot one. I told you.
I have to turn my air up. I got it on 72.
I told you it's going to be a hot one. Because again, this is something that we've talked about indirectly in all of our shows.
Right. It's an ongoing discussion.
Correct.
So we are all intelligent enough to know, like you said, Dr. Kyle, I'm intelligent enough to know that my white counterpart that is 50 years old, just like I am, did not enslave me. I'm intelligent enough to know that. But what I need you to do, and I've said this before too, until America atones for its wrong, it's gonna continue.
Yeah, and you can't do that by just giving people
a holiday.
A holiday and putting on a website Black Lives Matter, or suddenly all of the people on the front of your college website are brown and black. Right. No, we don't want these symbolic victories. No. We want reform. We want outcomes. Correct. And therefore, I will not clap until I see reform. And so many times we clap too early.
And that is where critical race theory comes in. That is why I said you have to understand that, yes, it's connected, but there's a difference, and there's an important difference, because you need somebody to set aside to say, why is it different? How is it different? And then what are we going to do to make it right?
Right.
And that's why it's a bigger topic.
Right.
That's why we don't want you to learn about Black history and Black people and brown people and Spanish people and women. We want to keep what's
Native
happening.
Americans were here. How you come to a land and discover some way folks at.
It's not even deeper than that. It's more of, I want to keep these policies and these things in place, these platforms in place.
And in essence, what they're doing, they're protecting their wealth. All right. So
really.
But But that's where we are. And the argument of white people feeling uncomfortable, that doesn't hold up with me at all. It's all about the way in which you deliver it.
It's kind of funny
so
because
so it's just
Black people have been uncomfortable for a long time.
And it's just like
we still uncomfortable. I was talking to a friend who can't even. She's like, I don't even want. Lisa was telling me this. She barely wants to drive because if a cop pulls up behind her, she feels uncomfortable.
You do and get nervous.
I mean.
If you think about it, every day there is anxiety, there is trauma. We deal with all of these mental issues every day, and we're expected just to be happy.
Yeah,
we're just happy. We over here, we happy slaves, as they portrayed. So for so many years, we just happy singing, dancing,
this paternalistic philosophy.
I will say this though. There is still a lot of people who are white who do believe in that same fight that we are fighting for.
Amen. This is the truth.
Who do want to share and give you the ability to say, hey, teach what you need to teach. Absolutely. Share what you need to share. Let's push the needle forward. And you got to give them the credit too.
Absolutely.
Okay. And there's still too many who fight in the wrong fight. Go ahead, Doc.
Okay, in France, I get it, and I love it. I love my white brothers and sisters in the fight for Black lives and so forth and so on. But Miss Lisa, I'm gonna use you as an example. If you're in a room talking about women's rights and equal work, equal pay, in Florida they give women 88 cents on every man's dollar. If I walk into that room, Miss Lisa, I can support you. I can donate to your campaign, but I cannot be the face of your movement because I'm not a woman.
Are you all right?
And that's one thing that we have to realize as Black people. Our white brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters, they can help us in this struggle, but we cannot make them the face of our struggle. And what happened during that of abolition all the way down to the civil rights movement, we made these white folk the face because we felt like they were objectivity thrown out of the window. All right, so we have to make sure that those people are supporting us and they are not center stage in our struggle. Now, that's one thing that we have to realize, because when you do that, if I become the face of women's rights, Miss Lisa, there are certain things I'll never understand about what you all go through. And guess what? You may find it to be a problem as a woman, but me as a man, they'll get over that. It doesn't matter. She's just angry. She's just an angry Black woman. They don't need that policy passed. So therefore, we have to be vigilant and remember to keep our spaces safe, to keep our spaces focused. All right, as we move this Black liberation movement forward, because it's ongoing, it never stops.
But you do agree that you have to, not the face of, but you do have to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because and I say that because we can scream. I can be a woman and scream at the top of my lungs, and I think I said this before too, that we get together as women and we have these talks. And about empowerment and this and that and the other, and there are no men in the room.
Right.
But
my thing is, it can't shift or change until the other set of people are in the room to help shift and change, is what I'm saying.
And you brought my point.
But what I'm saying is they need to be in the room because these are the attitudes that we need to change.
Correct.
These are the people that we need to change.
Correct.
So as others see that France is in the room while we talking about women empowerment, then there's another man saying, well, you know what? Maybe I need to join that bandwagon.
Correct.
And so then that's what I'm saying with Black folks. No, they can't. White folks can't be the face of, but they need to be in the room because it's really their attitudes.
Yeah, that we're trying to dismantle, those historic systems. So, and my thing is, Miss Lisa, I love that. And, but just make sure you all as women, y'all plan it out well. All right. before y'all come to us, because that's when it can be exploited. And that's what I'm saying about Black folk. You plan it well before you go to the enemy. All right, and so forth and so on. So the thing about it is, because ultimately everybody has these preconceived notions of exclusion and inferiority and so forth and so on. So you have to come correct. All right. With those other people and stay true, Miss Lisa, to what women feel is best for them. Right. And men coming in the room, we want you here with us. But if all of y'all walk out, we're still going to continue the fight.
Absolutely.
It's going back to what you said earlier in terms of the classroom. I need to hear both sides of the story, and all parties need to hear. And that's the fight for what needs to happen in the states that decided to go against teaching. It's not even just critical race theory, but just race in America.
Yeah,
everybody needs to hear this.
Inclusion that gets us all,
Correct. We need to hear it, whether you like it or not.
It's funny, we're expected to be inclusive.
Correct.
But you're not. So today, I'm going to tell y'all the truth. Today I saw some people that were not Black on campus. And I'm thinking, what y'all, in different neighborhoods in different parts of the city. And I'm thinking, can I call the police and say these folks look like they don't belong? Because there's a commercial, right? There's a commercial that talks about your space and what's your normal. And if you see anything that's kind of out of the normal and you don't feel quite safe about it or right about it, you should say something. See something, say something, right? But now if I did that, then I would be wrong. But on the other side of the city, if I was over there and I look like I don't belong,
they were going to say something.
Somebody going to call and say something.
Correct. Well, we just saw that this past week.
So what is my hesitancy in calling and saying, you know what, this don't quite look right? Because as a Black woman, I'm expected to be inclusive and just not to see, to see everything as you could be anywhere. But this was an all Black, historically all Black neighborhood. And now I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that. And I'm like, wait a minute. This was, when I was in Seattle, there was a red line district that only Black people could live in. And so then it was decided that they wanted to move some other folks in the neighborhood. And then now it's not all right. So they're moving the Black people out. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, so gentrification again.
Gentrification. So all of this again goes back to you have to put in the equation of everything that's going on, race.
And that's why it's important that it's taught. That's why it's important that it's taught and not taught in just a diluted form, right? Let's talk about it the same way you said, Dr. Harris. Let's debate it. Let's see all sides of it so that we can come together and say, okay, I got your side. I hear your point. I understand where you're coming from. And I hope you understand our side as well. That is essentially the fight that we're going to have to continue to fight. But you said it right, Dr. Harris. We need to have the right foundation, the right people to continue to push that needle so we don't get lost in the sauce. Because there's some people
it's just kind of hard to teach.
There's some people, my people, lost in the sauce. They lost.
Those that think we have arrived.
So we know
it was plenty of when Obama won that was like, oh, we finally there. And I was sitting there like, I love it. I love him. I prayed for him. I prayed they wouldn't kill him. All of that. But we ain't there, y'all.
Yeah. Well, I said this, and I shared this on the show as well many of times. We have to, again, start looking at the future. Yeah. So once we won, I text this. I said, it is a great day in America. But we need to start looking at the next 8 years, not just looking at these 4 years. We have to be prepared to see who's going to take his spot to continue to push this needle. Because if not, we're going to go backwards. And that's exactly what happened.
And he has said that he's a one-term president. I'm going to leave that alone. So, Miss Lisa, this is right around the corner. Okay. So whoever is going to carry the torch, they need to be preparing now.
Well, I think he done changed his mind.
Well,
I got it from a political scientist yesterday now. So he's changed his mind, Miss Lisa. So he's running. He's going to be in there for 2 terms.
I think I heard. Now this why I say I think we need a fact checker. But I thought I heard that.
Well, here's the thing. Even if he does, we still have to look at his age and the team that he puts around him. Right. I do think that there are so many other great candidates.
It is.
But we need to step up to the plate. As you stated, Dr. Harris, we need to support that person.
Absolutely.
Unified front, that person who believes in a unified America, that person who believes in both white, brown, black, Spanish, whatever it may be, who believes that we can do greater together than separate. That's the person who we need to continue to say, this is who we need to push. That person who believes that we can put policies in place to help not just one group of people, but all people. I could go on all day, but I'm not running for president. So
yeah, so better together, but let us remember the struggles of those people when we come together. Right. And in a lot of cases, that's when we lose focus, when we come together and forget those struggles. All of this about uniting and so forth and so on, that's all fine and dandy, but let us bring the issues to the table when we unite. And that has been, in essence, the liberal argument that in essence, this is a simulationist argument where we just come together and we forget racism. We forget the struggle. So when we come together, let us come together with our issues on the table and fix them. Everybody, women coming to the table, LGBTs coming to the table, Black people coming to the table, poor people coming to the table, and we fix them together. And what I'm saying by that is the challenges of Black people are rectified, poor people rectified, LGBTs rectified, and so forth and so on. But we can't run with one and forget the other 3.
Absolutely.
And that's what has been happening.
Absolutely.
And it's happening now, Miss Lisa, but I'm going to leave it alone.
Absolutely.
All right. So it's just like you can't unite a country in essence that is bleeding. All right. You can't heal a country that is spewing blood everywhere. So you have to work to medicate and assuage whatever and bandage up whatever is going on and work to heal it. Because in a lot of cases, we bandage it, but it never heals. So it just comes back off and it spews blood again. And that's the story of white supremacy in this country. We never nip it in the bud. All right. We always argue, let us come together. That whole crap with Donald Trump. All right. And marching on the Capitol, Charlottesville, all of those pieces. All right. And then suddenly let us come together. I read an article on that by Ibram Kendi maybe about a year ago. All right. Where we're coming together, but we're forgetting the challenges.
Correct.
Yeah. I think.
And when you come together, Miss Lisa, and forget my challenge,
we got a problem.
I'm through with you. I have done like Pontius Pilate. I've washed my hands of you. All right. So
absolutely. Oh my God. I think I remember. So during the elections and all these celebrities and this, that, and the other, but one of the things that I remember that sticks with me was Ice Cube saying he wasn't seeing enough done for Black people.
Correct.
Not minority, because when you say minority, when you help minority, it usually ends up being white women. Or just women, and all of these other, and I hate this term with a passion, people of color.
Yeah, and the thing about it,
throw us all, to me, like you're saying, Kyle, when you throw us all in one pot. No, I need you to recognize me as a Black woman, and then I need you to recognize this, and I need you to recognize that. Stop throwing me and lumping me in with just one thing. And so what he was saying too was we make all of these policies and supposedly progress about minorities, but you're not helping Black people who have been traumatized and put
over
down
the generations
and oppressed.
To this day,
we got to America. You have not fixed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing about it, and Miss Lisa, I don't even allow my students to use the term minority because the root of it is minor, and there's nothing about Black folk, women, LGBTs that's minor. So therefore, whoever you're speaking about, you say the Latinx community, you say the Black community, you say the LGBT community, but you will never use minority in my presence because ultimately it waters down the issues facing marginalized people. So therefore, I don't use it. Be definitive on what you're speaking to.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what they were pushing for with Ice Cube. He said, hey, let's be definitive on who we need to help. You want my vote, my community's vote. Okay, you get my community's vote. Now you need to give us something for that. That's how it works. I'm sorry. And Lisa, you said something earlier that's so true. Sometimes you just got to pull the Band-Aid off, Doc, and let it bleed and figure out if it needs a stitch or if it needs some type of glue, whatever, because the Band-Aid is not working anymore.
Yeah, so it's just
we bleeding. So I think, again, this is a time to say, let's address the problem, not put a Band-Aid on it, not pretend like it don't exist. Let's talk about it in our classrooms. Let's talk about it in our churches. Let's talk about it in our workplaces. Let's talk about the issue so that we can address the issue. There's a quote that I share with my students. If you don't know, if you don't see what's wrong, you can't fix what's wrong. You got to see it first before you can fix it. If you don't know that the water, the pipes in the toilet or whatever is broken in your house, you don't know, you're on vacation. It's never going to get fixed until you realize that it's broken. Then you say, I'm going to go and fix it. And we have a system right now that people don't want to address the leaky faucet. It's beyond leaking at this point. So let's fix it. We know that there's a problem. When you see it, you fix it. Period.
This is true. This is true. And another thing as it relates to that, we have to make sure that we put the appropriate representatives, leaders in place. You can't. I'm gonna stop like just a second. I gotta stop you for just a second. It does not work. My resume does not have anything on it. So when you come to me, when I go to you, Miss Lisa, saying I can just transform Charles Winterwood Theater if you make me chair, you're gonna be like, go on somewhere. Nothing about your resume says theater. All right. And in a lot of cases, we allow people to come into our churches. We allow them to come into our schools. We allow them to come into our civic organizations and ask us to vote for them. And their resume does not dictate any services that they have done in our community. And the question always should be, what have you done consistently over the past few years? Not just last year when you decided that you wanted to run. Because in a lot of cases, we continue to put incompetent people, we continue to put swindlers in office that in essence, take us for a ride every election season. And we have to be adamant and vigilant to say that if you want to run to represent us, you have to be one of us. If you want to fix A, B, C, and D, we have to see where you fix things in the past. If you haven't, I'm sorry, brother, you need to go out in the field and do some more work, but it's not time for you to run. I'm sorry, sister, you have not done anything in the projects on the South Side. So therefore, we don't need you to run. All right. This is the first time you've come to Bethel AME Church in the last 4 years. We don't need you.
Right.
And I said it. And my pastor's gonna get it, but he'll be all right. But the thing about it, I just get annoyed by that.
Well, we do
you
it
don't
anyway.
live with us. You don't come to our
You never seen this person. This person never came. Oh, He the deacon. What?
So it's just like, so don't come into our spaces requesting votes when you know that you're not a part of our community.
Right.
That you don't advocate for us.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
that you have not advocated for us. You may be advocating now. Whew, I'm gonna leave it alone. But that's just problematic for me.
Okay, so Dr. Kyle, you definitely have to come back to Kitchen Talk. I'm just gonna send you the link every week, and you just pop in whenever you want to.
Okay.
I love
but
it.
It's just,
I love it. And I think I said this last week too, because my pastor says you don't have to have a sermon on holiness, because if you just preach the word, holiness will come up. So we don't have to have a conversation topic on voting, because it just keeps
it's gonna come up, because it's like we have to put the right people in place.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and quit compromising. That's the part that gets me. We compromise, and as Maxine Jones says, we give our power away. When we do that.
And that's why we have this problem today in terms of critical race theory, in terms of racism, because we allow the wrong people to continue to push the narrative about a lie. Oh Lord, I mean, we done went past our time.
We are I keep trying to see.
I cannot reclaim my time.
I talk a lot, but it's really France that makes us go over time.
I love it,
and I think it was me too, Miss Lisa, this week. Okay.
Because you know what? This is what we need to be reclaiming. Mm-hmm. This is what we need to be talking about. But yet we have people in office who tell us you cannot do that.
Absolutely.
And to me, that is a slap in the face to what America was actually all about from the first place.
Absolutely.
Y'all left England for one reason, because
to be
the
free
king
and liberated.
told you
but then
to
you
do
get
what
over here and oppress people.
Correct.
Well, but I mean, if you look at it though, it comes from you doing what you grew up with.
Correct.
You're doing what you were taught. So you're not going on the other side of it. You repeating that same pattern. So you came over here to be free, religious free, or whatever free, and then you come over here and do.
They replicated it, Miss Lisa. That's why you have New Hampshire and New Jersey and New York and all of these places, because you got those same places called Yorkshire and Hampshire and so forth, and Jersey on the British Isles. They knew exactly what they were doing. A plantation, they are transplanting their society.
Absolutely.
Like I said, Civil War was the best time to kill that beast. But here we are today, and we have a new time, a new opportunity.
I call it the third Reconstruction, okay? But I'm going to leave it alone.
So listen. We are Kitchen Talk CTC.
Conversations that cook.
And it definitely cooked the night with Dr.
I know, because I feel like I'm cooking a whole meal in my dining room. Lord have mercy, it's so hot. Woo!
I love it. Dr. Kyle. You gotta come back and hang out with us. We're gonna be back next week.
You can't censor us.
I love it. Absolutely. So again, if you are watching us on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yeah.
If you're watching us on Facebook, hit the like button. Please tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell your mama, tell your daddy. The kids can watch us for the most part. Because we keep it clean, but they need to be informed too.
Yes.
And then if we have to get a little bit on the dark side, we'll give you a little warning. I am so excited about Kitchen Talk, as you all can tell. Again, we're doing our summer subscriber campaign. That is We will pull subscriber names. We're giving $50 gift cards, guest appearance, and we also have a gift of tax preparation and filing of the $300 that we're going to give away. And we're going to do that the week of my birthday, August 26th. My birthday
Happy
is
early
on
birthday, Miss Lisa. Legend of Morning August.
But we'll be doing that. I think we're just going to have a whole birthday party for me that day. I don't know what we're going to talk about. We may just, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, please come back, join us next Thursday, 9 o'clock. We'll be right here streaming live. This is for real live, y'all. Oh my God. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Thank you very much. And no filter, as you all can see, no editing, no none of that.
Right.
We just do what we do, and what I love about it is we're unapologetic. It is what it is. So absolutely, absolutely. So come back and see us next Thursday, 9 o'clock. I'm gonna see if Dr. Kyle gonna join us again, but I will definitely be sending him the link that he could just pop in anytime he get ready. I love it. We'll see you all next week. Bye.